enable. Forbes India presents The New at Work, presented by Google Workspace.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Forbes India Presents The New at Work, presented by Google Workspace, a series where we focus on how digitally native large firms and startups are quick to adopt to the changes in the workplace, while the small, medium, and micro businesses are hit hardest in such unprecedented times due to their reliance on legacy systems. Today, we will take a deep dive into what are the key drivers for transforming workspaces in India. My name is Manu Balachandran, and joining me today in our discussion is a rather diverse panel. We have Mr. Anil Parashar, the CEO of Interglobe Tech Quotient, Mr. Anand K, the CEO of SRL Diagnostics, Mr. Dheeraj Relly, the MD and CEO of HDFC Securities, Mr. Manoranjan Mohapatra, the CEO of Comviva, and Ms. Sumedha Chakrabarti, Country Head, India and SAARC at Google Workspace. Thank you, Sumedha and gentlemen, for joining me today. It's been a life-changing 2 years now. Almost this time 2 years ago, we were in the middle of a lockdown with so much uncertainty ahead of us. For many of us personally and organizations that we work for, the ambiguity seemed never-ending. Today, 2 years since, we are looking at a changed world. Pandemics might be here to stay, and that means we have to be better prepared to deal with it. Well, many of our preferences have changed within these 2 years. The one place that we've seen some sweeping change is the workplace. For long, work from home and hybrid models was a novel idea, bubbling trend that Indian companies had trouble coming around to. Today, a large number of our Indian companies and, of course, global firms have welcomed the transformation and at the forefront of laying out plans to continue with into the future. In fact, many see it as the real answer to business continuity. But as work gets remote and companies look to follow the model, there are many pertinent questions about how work will be done and what does the future hold. Long-term transformation requires redefining organizational mindsets, processes, collaborations, and employee capabilities for the digital world. Only those who manage to do so will stay ahead of the curve. On that note, let me bring in our panelists for their opening comments on what's probably the single biggest change that they have seen in the past 2 years at the workplace. Let me start with Mr. Parashar, and then we'll move around to the others.
Work from home is certainly looking a better option than working from workplace. How do you keep the people motivated? In this process, so many new opportunities have come up. So how do you retain the talent? How do you check the attrition? And how do you keep the marketplace as well as your in-house customer motivated in this whole changing scenario? So much from my side to begin with, and I'm glad to be here.
Mr. Relly, your opening comments?
I think the world has gone through a largest experimentation as far as work from home is concerned. We were all looking forward, having some discussion on some models around it, but pandemic forced us to do a large experimentation, not only in India, but across the world. And there are, it has been clearly established that it is a viable model. People can work from different geographies. People can work from anywhere via work from home alone and can still be productive. And I do believe that this will set the tone and this will set the context for future workplaces also. And now that we were locked in for almost 2 years, there is some kind of a eagerness at some employees level to come back to office for obvious reasons of socializing and looking forward to meet and looking forward to explore opportunities outside their very narrow home or community related ecosystem. So that's something is there. But what I see clearly is that going forward, hybrid workplaces model will going to work. And what is my single largest learning in this last 2 years is that we can adopt to any kind of environment, any kind of an ecosystem, and leverage that to the potential.
Absolutely. Before I bring in Sumedha, Mr. Mohapatra, your opening comments on what has changed for you.
I think Mr. Relly and Mr. Parashar has already said it very aptly. If the question is what has changed, I think it will be easier answer says what is a constant? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. There is a sweeping change But to be honest with you, I belong to the IT industry, and IT industry is facing the maximum challenge in terms of talent demand supply gap. But this work from home has so many other side effects, I would say, or the side impacts, not effects, that we are still in a catch-up mode. I don't think we have fathomed the depth of the problem or the challenges well. The impacts are beginning to be felt now. We will talk during the course of this discussion, I'm sure. But at this point of time, the biggest set of challenges are around, I would say, kind of HR kind. Engagement will be redefined. Emotional connect would be redefined. Work-life balance would be redefined. Productivity would be redefined. And we have not gone through that definition process, I think, as a society.
Interesting points. Mr. Anand, your thoughts?
I think as a healthcare player, we cannot afford to work from home. For the large part of our workforce has to be in hospitals, has to be in labs, and we have to be in the front. Especially during the pandemic, we had a lot of work to do, and we had to be in the front. So that is how do we actually manage in terms of connecting with the remote teams, and how do we work with them and make sure that whoever is in the field and whoever is in the office could manage things that somebody is not going to be in the office but going to be at home, and they're going to manage somebody who's going to be in the field. So it's like moving entire contact centers back home, to so that people can work from home and then take care of these contact centers activities. And how do you manage home collection for patients? So a lot of challenges, a lot of learnings in the last 2 years, and I think which has brought in sweeping changes in the way we work, not only in terms of our day-to-day work, but also in terms of how we handle our employees, how we actually conduct training programs. So all that has really been transformed, I would say.
Sumedha, you are actually, for your opening comments, you're actually in the middle of all of this, change that is happening at the workspace. What are your views on hybrid work? What has changed? Where is India today? You must be having a different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, this is India, what we heard just now. So thank you everyone for sharing that, because it literally ties into what our research says and what we are also grappling with as an organization. We are a huge organization globally, and we have a huge footprint in India as well. What we realized during COVID and through our research and talking to multiple customers as well as organizations across the board, that work is no longer a place. That concept of an office and one place that we go to work to is gone, and that's gone forever. Um, Second is time has become more important than ever, and we have started to really value our personal times. Uh, COVID showed us that how important it is to stay close to our near ones, as well as support our team members when they are going through certain health challenges in the workplace as well. And third, human connections. The importance of human connections have never been felt more than today. These are the principles that are really integrating our thoughts in Google, and as we build our product to somewhat support this. I wouldn't say tech can be an answer to this whole sweeping change that we see across the globe. But a lot of these insights is what we use, and hence the research that I talked about, to build some helpful tools to help everyone across the globe navigate this a little better. But it, at the end of the day, it is a change, and uh, it is going to be there forever. We've changed for good, and it's not going to go away in the future. But yeah, more on this later on, in terms of what Google as an organization is doing, how are we approaching it as an organization, and what I'm hearing through multiple conversations with customers across different industries in India, and how they have looked at return to work as well. But more on that later.
But do you have any sort of specific data points or observations on the transformation that we are seeing in the workplace now?
Absolutely. So what we are seeing, some of the summary points that I made, the underlying data points on those are around 48% of people feel that they will never go back to the older way of working. So they will always continue to choose or prefer a hybrid mode of working, and that's a huge number. 48% is what the research says. Number two, when I talked about time, 1 in 3 of the workforce that we have today have someone that they take care of at home. I mean, which is more like a primary caregiver. So it could be a mother or a parent taking care of their children, or someone taking care of their elderly at home. So at least 1 in 3 has been highlighted as a primary caregiver, and therefore for them time has become more important, and we've started to value that time. And then finally, human connections. The pandemic had created this view around really workforce burnout, which is also starting to show up now, or rather, it started to show up earlier in the year itself when we were starting to come back. And that is something that is being tracked across organizations, that how do we manage a hybrid work in the future without really technology burning you out in terms of your work pressure, and lack of human connections burning you out in terms of your work pressure. So these are some of the data points that are underlying the 3 pillars that I just talked about.
I think interesting points, for all our panelists to sort of think about and ponder over. Mr. Anand, healthcare was, of course, one of the first line of defense against the pandemic, and one of the few industries that could not enforce work from home. There were a lot of challenges that could be harnessed as opportunities. What were those challenges, and how did you leverage those opportunities with digital transformation?
Yes, healthcare was the first line of defense. And, when the pandemic actually broke out, we were also just as clueless as everyone. But we had to act quickly because, diagnostics was the first line of defense, and there was no question of work from home for us. From sourcing kits to training staff on the go and having a backup plan and multiple backup plans was the need of the hour. We also saw during that phase, of guidelines. Central government had different guidelines. State governments had their own guidelines. Each district and city administrations would have their own guidelines, and ensuring communication coordination between teams was very important, and it has to be quick and seamless. And that's where we found all the new age tools that had come in, the Zoom, the Teams, the Google Meets, and all that were used extensively. And we had put together almost something like 25 COVID labs. And if you see, those 25 COVID testing labs had come about. Earlier days, we would do accreditation. There will be a team will come, and they will from NABL, and they will come and accredit your lab. But now this whole accreditation process was virtual. So through Zoom meetings, they were connecting, and they were looking at the entire lab. They were looking at your processes. Everything was happening. The documents were exchanged. So many things happened over virtual platforms, which was not possible earlier. And when it comes to even training of people, what we found was, we had to deploy people on the go. So how do you actually train them? So the online training and learning platforms that we already had, and that was improvised further to handle these kind of special requirements. So that's how I think the digital transformation happened. But at the same time, we also saw the customer expectations changing. The customers were not ready to come to our labs for giving the samples, so we had to go to their home. And they were also looking at, not just, they were earlier only looking at reports through digital channels. Now they want to book a test, they want to book a visit. Everything is done digitally, and the entire journey of the customer was on digital platforms. So how do you actually align yourself to the new requirements is something of a challenge, and we had to learn and live up to it very fast.
Mr. Mohapatra, what are some of the changes that transpired at the workspace for you in the past 2 years, and how has that sort of changed your workspace policy?
I think one thing that was immediately understood and changed, that we used to have a much flatter pyramid where you had the supervisor, the managers managing much larger number of people, but in a work from home environment. more so in a situation. I mean, I'll give you some data point that will be at least very disturbing in terms of digesting or fathoming them. We are in an industry where the attrition is fairly high, let's say 25, sometimes even 30%. And in 2 years, we would have lost 60% of the people. We would have brought in new people. And if there is a 5-10% growth, because telecom was one vertical that was, or technology was one vertical that was still growing. So you're talking about more than half the people of the company have joined the company at home and have not seen the organization nor their line managers. So our onboarding process, our orientation, our finishing school equivalent that we run internally, all of them were, dysfunctional completely. Managers, they were trained to conduct projects and reviews and effective one-on-ones and counseling more on a face-to-face basis. Initially, the first 3-6 months, there was excitement that you get to work from home, and it's something that as an organization all of us were fighting. I'll give an example. Only 2 weeks prior to March 2020, there was a massive requirement or a request came from the employee base that give us flexibility to work from home. We are commuting and spending a lot of time on the roads. And we thought we had made a sweeping change in the policy of the company, where we said from a week per quarter that you could work from home, we brought it down to a week and a month. And within 2 weeks, we were all back at home. And my first fear was that would the VPN, the IT infrastructure, the broadband, the connectivity sustain? To my extreme positive surprise, I know countries suffered. We have fairly large, almost 90 country operations. India withstood for the kind of size of the population that we are in extremely well. Working from home, broadband from home, all these video, the Google Meets and the Teams and the Zooms consume a lot of bandwidth. And, so that's on the positive side. But the negative side is changes that we are still grappling. I said, I don't think we have fathomed all of it still, is how do you engage with people? How do you emotionally connect? How do you connect to a brand? Our conventional methods don't work anymore. And the managers are not even trained, including myself, not even trained how to do that ourselves. So we are really, I would say, unpeeling the onion layer by layer.
Mr. Really, something that Mr. Mahapatra referred to, the conventional methods, of course, are changing now. What has been your experience on that front? I mean, I assume, you will want more people on the ground, right?
No, actually, we have a lot more dependence on the technology, and we are almost like a technology company. So, yes, we do have a high touch with the customers also, but 85% of our revenue comes from the digital properties. So it was easy transition for us to move more and more customer to digital platforms, barring the very few customers who still need high touch or assistant from a relationship manager. So moving customer to digital platforms was not difficult at all in our industry. In fact, ours is a little bit more progressive industry than the many other industries, thanks to our regulators who are very progressive. SEBI and exchanges paved way for us to onboard and acquire customer completely digitally. So that way, it was not difficult for us to run our business as such. The only problem was that we were internally were not fully prepared to work from home. So our technology, our offices, our back office ecosystem was more designed to work from office only. And I am glad that my co-panelists have honestly admitted that we were not fully prepared to deal with the pandemic. I think many people make these statements that we were ready to work from home and we were ready to deal or navigate with the pandemic. But my take is that no company in the world was prepared to deal with this kind of a pandemic. So all of us have learned in our journey in last 2 years, how do we optimize work from home, how do we leverage work from home, and how do we ensure that we have the right amount of measurements or productivity tracking. I think it's still a long way go. It's a journey. We are all not very sure that how many people would love to work from home, how many people would love to come back to work. When we did certain surveys, we figured out that at least now at this juncture, most of our people are actually looking forward to work from office only and not work from home. And let's
Oh, okay.
understand and appreciate that many people who live in incommodious environment houses are finding it difficult to cope up with the work from home also.
So, what are you going to see a hybrid workspace now? What do you
we've
see? How do you
already
see?
implement we've already implemented hybrid work from a hybrid policy. We do give people, and we have three set of actually in this policy, people who have opted out completely work from home. Some of them, some roles are such, and some people have requirements like that where they can completely work from home. Then there are people who said that we'll work from only office, we do not work from home because our support system is not enough, or we do not like to work from home. And then
Hmm.
there are a set of people who want to hybrid, who want a flexible ecosystem, because as and when they would like to come to office, meet people, there are meetings, and they come to office, otherwise they can work from home. I think this is the future of workspace, because this is how things will evolve. There is no one size fits solution that would solve problem for our industry, and I think all other industries also. There are so many industries where you need high touch, and they will not be able to, like healthcare industry, Mr. Anand mentioned that how they can work from home. There's no work from home for their people. So there are so many such industries where work from home is not viable, and there are so many industries where 100% work from home is absolutely viable, possible, scalable. It's only matter of time. How do we figure out that? How do we measure the productivities? Last bit of information from my side. I think we've seen a lot of efficiency in the hybrid and work from home, because it improves the efficiency by doing small, short duration meetings and less meetings. I think a lot of us were more happy to do and conduct the longer meetings, which absolutely brings in hardly any productivity.
Sumedha, just taking on to what Mr. Relly also mentioned. So obviously, we are seeing a shift to a more flexible and distributed sort of teams. How is it, of course, impacting technology adoption?
Absolutely. I mean, technology, as I said earlier, has supported this transition to a large extent. But I think the technology players also understand that it needs to align with the human aspect of it, which is what is going to drive the change. I think some of the nuances that I would like to call out in terms of how earlier technology required, and I come from old school. So technology required us going to an admin to patch up a device, or patch up the software on my device, or patch up a particular application on my device. Today, the employee's expectation is everything will be on the fly, things will just automatically get upgraded when you get connected to the internet. And that's the big piece that will foster adoption much faster, as you reduce those touch points required, or external touch points required to feed in new technology features, enhancements in any of the products that you're rolling out to the market. So I think that is crucial in any technology adoption, and seamless technology adoption, that it just lights up whenever that feature comes in, comes general availability comes through, it just lights up. That's how your employees are going to adopt any technology, instead of you literally having to go to an admin and update or upgrade your device or your app or your or the softwares on the device. So that's number one. Number two, I think incremental changes, smaller changes, bringing those much faster, listening more to your audience. So in Google, we have the scale of really listening into the users that are on our platforms, because we have about 3 billion plus users using Google Workspace as a platform. So we have the scale to really hear from the AI and the ML signals that we hear in terms of usability, what is important, and then we layer that with research that we do in terms of what is needed to support human beings, to support employees, to support organizations through this transformation. So small changes that we bring in, which again seem very seamless, but once they are in, it is so intuitive. Like things like uh, we uh, we integrated and we lighted up a new feature just over the last few months, and it just automatically came up. No one needed to do any update. Is literally whenever you sign into Google Meet, the video already does an auto processing of the light available wherever you're sitting, and it adjusts the lighting without the user having to adjust the lighting of their device, whatever they are using to enter a Google Meet call. And that auto adjusted the visibility of the person who's joining in a call. Number two, noise reduction. Again, something that has become so important in the pandemic mode, when we literally had to take calls. Some took calls from their kitchens, from their dining tables, because no one had really a home office already in place when they went into the lockdown mode suddenly across the globe. So we realized that the noise around is important to be cut down, to shut out, to have a more productive conversation. And so that's something that we have rolled out again over the last few months seamlessly. People who have been using our platform have not even felt the difference, unless they have been in a very noisy situation and they are like literally telling the audience that, hey, wait, I'm not able to hear you because there's a construction going on nearby, or there is a huge truck moving and I can't hear you. Apologies. And that's when the other party says, well, I'm not able to hear anything because I can hear your voice clearly. So that's Google noise cancellation AI working very seamlessly and very silently at the back end to cut out any noise outside of the human voice that needs to get communicated. So just two small examples which we rolled out again very seamlessly, but we saw the importance of that become much bigger during these pandemic days, when people were grappling with how to really manage and use technology to support their productivities. And going forward, these are the way I believe every technology company is thinking of rolling out their features, making them seamless, making them aligned to what the human needs are, instead of really abiding by the longer term vision of this is what we want to build, but rather bringing in more feedback points through research, through these conversations, and building it into the product on an ongoing basis.
Mr. Parshar, Sumedha spoke about how technology companies such as Google are obviously bringing in so much change around them to make it more flexible for companies. How are you, for your company? How are you leveraging collaboration tools to sort of engage with your employees?
What is more important is the level of utilization. And that, I think, is something that is a work in progress for ourselves. How much do you engage your people on the different technologies? What are the new features you can provide them? How do you maintain balance? I talked earlier about this overload with the webinars and things. So technology is also a very balancing act at one level. While everything is available, how do you make the best use of it? Utilization. We, on our part, at one level, for the internal customer, we are using the technologies to make them more interconnected, make keeping the people learn more, skill more, which is the ask of today's employee. He's got his own life goals in front of him. He wants to be driven by that. For the external customer, we continue to make new value adds through the technology available, which is how to make use of it, and that's where we are focused on.
Mr. Mahapatra, let me bring you here. In a sort of a highly fluid business environment, there's of course a need for constant engagement and collaboration between teams to sort of ensure speedy resolution of problems, fostering innovation, and to ensure constant connect between employees and the enterprise. What are the steps that you have taken to sort of ensure this takes place in your organization?
I think we were a fairly distributed organization with development centers in Buenos Aires in Argentina, in Sao Paulo, in US, in Netherlands and Sydney and in Bangalore and Gurgaon. So distributed working was not an issue, but having people who are not connected, you have to teach them pretty much everything because they've not gone through that process, was a bigger challenge. But what has come, and I'm to a certain extent surprised in 2 or 3 things that I've seen recently. We did some survey and 62% of the people said work-life balance is our biggest issue. I was honestly thinking we don't want to come back to office, or we want to, in a hybrid mode, or something else will come up as number one issue. The number one issue was work-life balance. So as a consequence, we have taken a decision that we will have blackout hours in a day or blackout days in a half days or whatever in a week, that we will not have any calls, video calls or collaboration calls, because for some reason, and I can't even explain why, when people are working from office, the number of meetings that was happening was less because maybe people walk across to the room and resolve a tiny issue in over a coffee. Now everything requires a call, and it has pretty much taken away available time from people, and people are fairly fatigued. And we had to almost force this issue that maybe there are 3 windows of 2-3 hours each in a week, that it's a no-call zone for the company. Same is true about the number of wellness and mental health requests and cases that we are beginning to see is fairly high. I almost didn't hear it before. And we had to now engage with external firms and agencies to help our employees and their families in that particular area. I don't understand that so well, but I can tell you the incidents have definitely gone up. And we are being more concerned about it as an organization to see what we can do. But overall, I think at this point of time, the biggest issue is when we induct people into the organization, we assume that by virtue of working, learning, seeing things, interactions, they will get aligned to so-called the Conviva way, the culture of the organization. And there is huge amount of focus right now saying, what do we do? Because it's not given anymore.
Mr. Anand, let me throw this question to you. Of course, with diagnostics becoming more precision-based and more skewed towards personalized medicines, how vital, was the use of collaboration tools? And how are you sort of enabling that?
Digital transformation has always been, a thing in progress in healthcare, especially in diagnostics. And I would say this pandemic rather fast-tracked the whole process. And, we talk about what is called as digital pathology or telepathology. So what we found is during this pandemic, how do we actually get people to work and collaborate together? So we had pathologists who were at different locations. Some specialists were in some locations, some were not there in other locations. They couldn't travel. So that's when we adopted the solution of, scanning the slides and then, digitizing the images, and those images are read from different places. So this actually helped us in the process that, some of our key people, they can avoid getting infected, but at the same time contribute to work by being, whoever can be. The whole idea was how many of the people can actually need to come to work and how many can actually work from home. So, and how do you facilitate this whole process? I think that's something where, for precision medicine to happen, what we need is a precision diagnostics, and that, whether it's digital pathology, whether it is genomics, proteomics, all the omics of the world, all these things can be put to use through a proper digital channel where you're able to collaborate, where you're able to exchange views, where you're able to share the information on a much real-time basis, so that you're able to connect with your clinicians as well as with the patients, and you're able to offer the right solution for them, mainly for rare diseases, inherited disorders, cancer and reproductive disorders. We found these collaboration tools very useful. When you talk about sequencing platforms, and when you actually do large whole exome sequencing, whole genome sequencing, to actually study these things, we need to have a large server and a large number of bioinformaticians working on it. So these people are actually positioned in different locations, so we couldn't bring them together always. So there, the collaboration tools helped in actually exchange of information and getting things done faster. So that way we are able to take care of the explosion of genetic information and biological databases. So it's become very important for any organization of our size that wants to incorporate precision medicine into its portfolio to have a variant knowledge base, and that's how these collaborating tools have helped us.
And they've been successful so far, in your opinion?
Yes, it has been fairly successful, and people have adapted quite well to the changes.
Mr. Really, you're in a business where, of course, providing an enriched sort of customer experience is at the heart. So, in order to, of course, keep evolving and delivering much, collaboration is required, both internally and with the external stakeholders. Sort of, to leverage the benefits of scalability, flexibility, and cost effectiveness. What tools, are you sort of using to achieve that?
So, in terms of product enhancement and developments, we've been working with the fintech proactively. We do believe that a lot of innovation can come from the fintech space. These are the entities who are solving very niche problems, and anyone who can help us in adding value to our customers are more than welcome to come forward, and we can integrate their products, their offering, their service to enhance value for our customers. So that's something have been at the forefront for us to collaborate with the fintechs. We've also been looking at multiple telecom solutions also, because for us to have a high touch engagement with our customers, we need to connect with the customers. So earlier this was just about the calling to the customers, then video calling to the customers, and now a calling solution that can enable our resources to call from anywhere. Okay, it is important that they are at home or they are at wherever they are. In case they need to connect with the customers, they can use various telecom solutions that are safe also. For us, data security is also of paramount importance. So we had to work on multiple telecom solutions. So we collaborated with the telecom partners and service providers to come out with a cyber solution that gives us a data security as well as a convenience to call from anywhere also. So collaboration is at the core of our organization. In fact, it is the nervous system for us at HDFC Securities. I can go on and elaborate on collaboration across all fronts also. In fact, technology is the backbone for us. So we are, proactively leveraging various technology related solutions, artificial intelligence and machine learning, even robotic process automation. I can give you one simple solution that when we were onboarding new customers, we need to verify their accounts. So we thought that how do we minimize this obstacle? So by using the artificial intelligence, we could match various documents, KYC documents provided by the customers, and go for an automated approval. And in cases where we have mismatch, they can be verified and quickly approvals can be given. So the thought process in our organization is that how do we minimize the paperwork? How do we leverage the different kind of technologies? So we actually work with various players, in almost all the field, to ensure that we add value to our customers. In our business, it is real-time information and real-time availability is also of paramount importance, because market starts at 9:15 a.m. and they end at 3:30 a.m. and that's when absolutely customer require a real-time availability of the systems and real-time nudges. So that's where we have to really collaborate and ensure that we have a high-touch ecosystem. At the same time, we are real-time.
Sumedha, security, data privacy, and of course, trusted collaboration are a must for a hybrid workplace. What is your opinion? What do you think is a sure sort of way of achieving all three, while you think about transformation, for the future?
I think there is again the fact that work is no longer a place means that old way of thinking about security of it being uh, within the perimeters of the office that approach has to go away, and in most cases it has already gone away. Organizations and specifically the financial services that Mr. Relly comes from, they have been the pioneers in terms of looking at identity based security, as opposed to the perimeter based security that we used to look at earlier. The next wave on identity is actually zero trust. So this is Google's pioneer thought process on zero trust. Is literally we trust nothing. We assume that every touch point could be a breach, and we trust nothing, and therefore everything is through cloud native, through our the encrypted policies that we build in our products, which makes sure that every touch point that a user has with a Google technology assumes a breach and then trusts nothing, looks into the identity of the person logging in instead of the particular device they are logging in from or the location they are logging in from. So that's the core policy, or the core theme that underlines all the products that we build. And that is what we are also seeing a lot of the customers adopt. And even the concept of the OTP, the two-factor authentication, all of this comes from that, right? Literally every time you do your financial transaction, a password is not enough. It has to be real time. It has to be zero trust, because a password can be shared, a password can be stolen, or it can be hacked. So that is the core theme. I think that has literally been something that we are really advocating for and building as a grounds up foundation in all our products.
I just wanted to go back to an earlier point on, of course, on employee well-being. Mr. Parashar, Mr. Mohapatra, it's absolutely vital to get constant feedback in terms of your workforce's productivity and their well-being. So, what are some of the steps that you've taken in this direction?
We have two prong. One is obviously you have mentors and buddies in the organization who you can talk to, spend time with, and you have an external organization that you can reach out to on a no-name basis if you want it to be confidential. But I think the issue is people are getting stressed. People are getting constantly in terms of meetings and activities that's happening on an online basis. So the mix of doing a boss bashing over a coffee in one of the corners is completely missed in day cycle. And what we are doing is, other than these two at this point of time, we're debating to see if we can mix a little bit of a fun that used to happen on the floor, which is again in a hybrid work model. It's not easy, but we are trying to do that so that people break away the monotony of work in a day and get breaks which are not work but more social, and that's going to become an integral part of our calendar, I think.
Absolutely. Mr. Parashar, your comments?
On our part, because we are more workplace oriented organization, we are trying to work a lot on the preventive health, the mindset, the mental health, and we are trying to do a lot of outdoor physical activities, as well as a lot of talk shows in terms of health, in terms of well-being, how to be strong. And that is one thing. We're trying to get more families involved in the workplace. We do a lot of family days.
Are you seeing similar trend that there could be trouble sort of brewing, like Mr. Mohapatra said?
Maybe it's a little more industry centric, but right. I do see that there are challenges, and that is why you have to be very conscious. What I said earlier, that today's millennial workforce largely is driven by focus on skilling. They are focused on their own life goals. Cannot be, the brand itself is not attracting people. And that is why you will see a high level of attrition in the very best companies that we all talk about.
We are running short of time, but so I'll start taking closing comments from all of you. I'll start with Mr. Anand. Your closing comments on what are some of the key drivers for transforming workplaces in India, and how do you see that sort of eventually shaping up?
The hybrid workplace is here to stay, and and focus on mental and physical well-being of the employees is going to be a very important criteria for employers, and they will look at preventive health options. So we are seeing that trend when many corporates get in touch with us in terms of how they want to work with us for their employee wellness. So this is going to be another focus area, and when we grapple with the work-life balance issues that come out of this hybrid workplace, so that is here to stay, and we need to adapt to the requirements of this hybrid workplace, and whatever is possible out of your ecosystem, whatever can be transformed to a hybrid workplace, work from home or work from anywhere options will also be looked at, and that's what I think will be the future going forward.
Absolutely. Mr. Riley, your thoughts on the key drivers for transforming the workplaces in India?
We have already moved from the time spent in the office to the productivity driven culture. And now, with the world at large experimentation of work from home, hybrid work ecosystem, we all have to progress on the efficiency modeling rather than focusing on traditional or archaic way of working. So we need to leverage technology to its potential, not an overdose of technology, and yet need to be more and more flexible to see that we move and progress towards the optimization, efficiency management rather than looking at time and productivity. Those are the old matrices and will not work in the progressive work environment.
Absolutely. Mr. Parashar, your closing comments on the...
Yeah, I think the talent continues to be the top overriding item in terms of attracting, in terms of retention. And I think an organization is moving from a efficiency-driven organization as pre-pandemic to a resilient-driven organization in terms of talent.
Mr. Mahapatra?
It's not only the seven of us are talking about these fundamental issues here. Every organization, there is a leadership team which is worried about it. And that gives me immense amount of help that people have identified the issues, people are focused, and some of them are addressed, some of them are being addressed. So hybrid model is here to stay. All the offshoots of challenges that we are seeing out of that in terms of mental health, culture, engagement, and technology-related issues and work-life balance. It's not going to be easy to sort it out in matter of months, but it will happen maybe next 12 months.
Sumedha, your final thoughts on what is the key drivers transforming workspace in India?
Yeah, I would definitely want to summarize into key points. One is the human aspect. I think the leadership of all organizations need to assume that things that we know today are going to change constantly over time. So having an open mind towards whatever policies that they are trying to make now or trying to build for the next 3 to 6 months, there should be an openness to change that, revisit those policies on a regular basis to make sure that it still continues to work for their particular workforce and nurtures the culture and the brand that they want to build for themselves. So that's on the human side. I think that's a major change that is coming through and is here to stay for good. And the second one is technology needs to become simpler, more flexible, and more helpful. It is not anymore a jazzy thing, a cool thing for enterprises to adopt. It's something that enterprises need to really work optimally across their customers, internally, to grow their top line as well as nurture their talent inherently. So all of these are the need of the hour. So it's not just a cool gizmo or being early adopters just for the flash of it. I think that trend is gone. Everyone is really looking at technology to help be more simple and helpful in their regular day-to-day life operations as well as their customer interaction. So that's the mindset change that the leading technologists and the CIOs of the organizations, the CDOs of the organizations have come to terms with. And these are the two themes that are here to stay for good.
On that note, it's been a fabulous discussion today. Clearly, hybrid is here to stay, and employee wellness is going to be at the center of all of that. And for companies, that means focusing on an efficiency model and absolutely using technology to its fullest. Thank you, everybody, once again for joining us today.
Forbes India presents The New at Work, presented by Google Workspace. Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.